You measured it twice. You know you did, because you have been burned before and you are careful now. You wrote the number on the board in pencil. You cut on the line. And it is short. Not by much. By a 16th, maybe an 1/8. Enough that it will not sit in, or it sits in with a gap you can see from the doorway. And you stand there holding a piece of wood that is the wrong length, and you did everything right. So you go looking for who to blame, and there are 3 usual suspects. The saw. Maybe the blade wanders, maybe the fence is out. The eyes. A man past 60 tells himself that a good deal, and mostly he is being unfair to himself. Or the wood, which does move, though not usually while you are carrying it across the shop. I want to point you at a 4th thing this morning, and it is sitting on your belt. That little metal hook on the end of your tape measure moves. It slides back and forth. You have noticed it for years, and you have almost certainly thought it was loose, and I would guess a good many of you have at some point taken a pair of pliers to it and squeezed it tight to fix it. It is not loose. It moves on purpose. It is the most misunderstood piece of engineering in the average American workshop, and when it goes wrong, every single measurement you take is wrong by the same amount, and there is nothing in the number to tell you. One word before we go on, and then I will leave it alone. Everything I do lives at jonasoldways.com, and the book is there, which is The Keeping of a House, written down room by room. That is the only time I will say it. Now go and get your tape. Take the tape and look at the hook. Pull it out with your fingernail and let it go. It travels back and forth a little way, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, held by 2 or 3 rivets running through slots rather than through round holes. Here is what that travel is doing, and once you see it, you will never unsee it. The hook itself is made of metal. It has a thickness, and that thickness is a problem, because you use a tape 2 entirely different ways. Sometimes you butt it. You push the end of the tape up against something, a wall, the inside of a box, the far side of an opening, and you read. When you do that, you are pushing on the outside face of the hook, and the hook slides in toward the case. Sometimes you hook it. You catch the lip over the end of a board and you pull. Now you are pulling on the inside face of the hook, and the hook slides out away from the case. The distance it slides is exactly the thickness of the hook, which means in both cases, 0 lands on the actual surface you are measuring from. Butt it and the thickness is taken out. Hook it and the thickness is put back. The tape is correct either way without you thinking about it for a second. That is a very fine piece of design, and it was worked out a long time ago by somebody who understood that a man on a job will use a tape both ways in the same minute. And it only works if that hook is right. If nobody ever explained that to you, a like helps it reach the next fellow blaming his saw. And subscribe if you would like to sit with me again next week. 1. Somebody tightened it. This is the most common, and it is done out of care, which is the way most damage happens. The hook wiggles, a man decides it is worn out, he lays it on the bench and gives the rivets a squeeze with pliers or a tap with a hammer. Now the hook cannot travel, and now every measurement he butts is a 1/16 long, or every measurement he hooks is a 1/16 short, depending on where he pinned it. Consistently. Forever. And he has no idea, because a tape with a tight hook feels better made than one with a loose hook, and it lies to him with total confidence. 2. It got bent. You dropped the tape off a ladder. The hook took the landing because it always does. Now it is out of square, or one corner sits proud, or the lip is folded a few degrees off true. A bent hook does not sit flat against the end of a board. It touches at one corner and stands off at the other, and where 0 actually falls is anybody's guess, and it changes with the angle you hold it. 3. The slots wore out. 10 years of hooking and snapping and dragging, and the rivet slots get long. Now the hook does not travel a fixed 1/16. It travels a 1/16 and a bit, and how much depends on how hard you pull. That is the worst of the 4, because it is not a constant error you could learn to live with. It moves around. The same tape gives you two different answers on the same board on the same afternoon. 4. You used two tapes. This one is not a fault in either tape, and it will still cost you a board. You measure with the tape on your belt. Then somebody calls you, or you set it down, or you go to the saw and there is a tape sitting on the bench, and you pick that one up to check before the cut. Two tapes, both perfectly good, can differ by a small amount. Different hook thickness, different wear, different amount of travel. Small enough that neither of them is broken. Big enough to make a joint you can see. That is where the words on the thumbnail come from. Use one tape. One tape for the whole job, from the first measurement to the last cut. If you have two men working, they carry two tapes, and they check them against each other before they start. First, look at the hook straight on. Hold it up at eye level with the lip toward you. It should be square, both corners the same height, the lip flat and not folded. If one corner is up, it is bent. Second, work the travel. Pull the hook out with a fingernail and let it snap back. Do it a few times. You want a definite short slide, the same distance every time with a stop at each end. What you do not want is a hook that barely moves, which means somebody pinned it, or one that slops around freely, which means the slots are gone. Third, and this is the real test, check it against something you trust. A steel framing square, or a good rule, or simply another tape. Butt them both against the same edge, run them both out to the same foot mark, and put your eye down on it. They should agree. If two tapes disagree by anything you can see, one of them is wrong, and until you know which, neither of them belongs on a job that matters. Fourth, hook and butt the same board. Take a board with two square ends. Hook the tape on one end and read the length. Then butt the tape against that same end, wall side, and read it again. A tape with a good hook gives the same number both ways. That is the whole point of the travel, and it is the fastest way to prove your tape to yourself. If it fails any of those, do not fix it. I will come back to that. The hook is upstream of everything, which is why I put it first. But there are 3 more places a 16th goes missing, and they are worth a minute. Sight straight down. When you read a mark, get your eye directly over it, at 90 degrees to the tape. Reading from an angle shifts the line against the number. You may have to kneel, or lean, or move your head, and it feels fussy, and it is worth it. This one costs more men more wood than any of the others. Roll the blade over. A tape blade is curved, that is what makes it stand out stiff. But the curve means the edge of the blade floats off the wood, and a mark made under a floating edge sits wherever it likes. Roll the tape a little onto its side so the edge comes down and touches the surface. Now the mark and the wood are in the same place. Know which side of the line you are cutting. A pencil line has width. A saw blade has width, and it takes out about 1/8 of an inch of wood. So a cut has to happen on the waist side of the line every single time, and the same side every time. Or you have introduced an error that has nothing to do with the tape at all. Decide once and be religious about it. Do not straighten a bent hook. I said I would come back to it. Bending that steel back does 2 things, both bad. It work hardens the metal, so it is closer to snapping than it was, and you have no way to verify you got it truly square. A tape is $15 or $20. A morning's work and a board are worth more. Retire it, and if you cannot bear to throw it away, mark it with tape so it never comes back into a job, and use it for rough work in the yard. Same for worn rivets. There is no fixing enlarged slots. That tape has done its service. A tape that took a real fall may be wrong in the blade too, not just the hook. Steel that has been kinked and pulled straight does not go back to the length it was. If a tape has been run over or dropped from height, check it against a known good one before you trust it again. And here is the honest one, and it is bigger than the whole video. The best carpenters measure as little as they possibly can. Where you can, do not take a number at all. Hold the piece up to the space and mark it directly from the thing it has to fit. Cut a stick to the opening and use the stick. Transfer. Do not calculate. Every number you write down is a chance to be wrong twice, once reading and once remembering. A direct mark cannot be misread. On a job where it truly has to fit, that is the method, and no tape on earth beats it.
A tape is $15 or $20 for a good one, and it will last years if you do not drop it. The board you cut short is worth more than that if it is anything decent, and the trim you cut short is worth a good deal more, and neither of those is really the cost. The cost is a man losing faith in his own hands. I have watched fellows decide they had lost their touch, or that their eyes had gone, or that the saw needed replacing because their work kept coming out a 16th off and they could not find why. One of them was about to buy a new saw. The tape was 3 years old, and somebody had squeezed the hook tight with pliers to stop it rattling. There is a thing about errors that took me a long while to learn, and this is the plainest example of it I know. You look for the fault where the trouble shows up. The board is short, so you look at the saw because the saw is what made the board short. That is a reasonable instinct, and it is almost always aimed too far downstream. The saw only did what the line told it. The line only did what the number told it, and the number only did what 0 told it. So the fault is at the beginning of the chain, sitting on a little sliding piece of steel that you have looked at 10,000 times and never once looked at properly. Nothing about it announces itself. It does not squeak, it does not stick, it does not break. It just quietly agrees with everything you already believe about the saw and the wood and your eyes. Most of the trouble in a shop is like that. Not hidden exactly, just standing at the start of the line where nobody thinks to check because the mess is happening at the other end. So this morning, before you cut anything, spend 2 minutes on the end of your tape. Look at the hook square on. Work the travel with a fingernail. Hook and butt the same board and see if it tells you the same story twice. And then use that one tape for the whole job, from the first mark to the last cut, and do not let another one near the work. And tell me this below. What is the thing you built that came out wrong and you never did find out why? A door that would not shut right, a shelf that sat crooked, a run of trim that never closed up. I read every one of these, and I have a feeling that half the answers are going to be sitting on somebody's belt. Weeks ago, we talked about a hammerhead that came loose in the middle of a swing and how the whole tool is really the joint. This is the same lesson at the other end of the shop. The part nobody looks at is the part everything else depends on. God keep you, friend. We will talk again.